Why do you support Trump?
Well, in 2016, I didn't. 2020, I was on the fence. In 2024, it was pretty clear, kind of after how the 2020 time went and the open borders and a lot of the other really bad things, in my opinion. So I really wasn't a Trump supporter at all until basically I just looked at 2020 hindsight of how the 8 years went.
Okay, so like, could you name like a Democratic policy that you disagree with?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the open border policy. I think is, horrible for child. Um, I don't like the kind of the liberalness of laws. I do think people should go to jail as they are assigned. I don't think we should be letting people out. I don't think that we should be housing people in New York City, immigrants that aren't legal citizens. I think we should deport people that they did do that. I think they should deport people that don't do it the legal way, just like I think any other country should do that. I think if I went to Mexico, they should deport me if I don't go the legal process. So a lot of those things have added up to make me go, seems like a better solution.
So Elon didn't go through the legal process into the United States. He violated immigration law. Should he be deported because he did originally violate immigration law?
Yeah.
Okay. Deport Elon, I guess. Secondly, Democrats don't support open borders. We still want restrictions on the border. We want people who have committed violent crimes and bad crimes to be not allowed into our country or deported. And like if someone was held civilly liable of someone, we wouldn't let them enter the country nor enter the Oval Office. And then you said that you shouldn't be letting people out. So how do you feel about Donald Trump pardoning violent rioters, police officers, and he called them patriots as well?
I'm not familiar with it, but are you talking about October 7th? Is that what it was?
No, I'm talking about
So,
January 6th.
oh, January 6th. Okay. Yeah, not great.
Okay, yeah,
I don't feel good about it.
he pardoned violent rioters who were police officers. Like for example, DJ Rodriguez drove a the neck of a police officer, which led to that police officer having a heart attack. Right. So, I mean, do you think that that person should have been pardoned? They were released onto the streets with absolutely no charges because Donald Trump pardoned them.
Well, I think what you're asking is very detailed questions. If I'm going to look at the broad scheme of who do I think did better in the 4 year period, I don't know how anybody would say that Biden did better, which now seem like the same option to me or a very similar option with Kamala Harris.
Oh, Biden
In
absolutely
fact,
did
Kamala
better.
Harris ran in 20, when was it, 2020, and nobody actually cared to vote for her because she's simply not impressive.
So I just want to she had 7 to 15% of the primary vote, right? And she dropped out
That's
to be the
terrible,
vice
isn't it?
president. When Donald Trump ran in 2000, how much support of or how much percent of the vote did he get in 2000 when he first ran?
In 2000,
Yeah, Trump ran in 2000. What percent of the vote did he get then when he first ran?
that's a great question. I don't know that it's relevant
Oh
to
wait,
the
why is that
comparison
not
between.
relevant? But the first time Kamala Harris ran to for vice presidency, that does matter. Explain to me why one does matter, but the other one doesn't. Because she got a higher percentage of the vote, right, in terms of the primary than Donald Trump even got close to in 2000.
Sure, but I was saying that I think she would follow suit from what Biden was doing. So that was the problem, not that she didn't get votes.
Okay, so but your claim was that no one wanted to support her. That's actually verbatim what you said. Okay.
It seemed like she wasn't supported over Biden. So if she's going to apply the
Sure,
same
that doesn't
policies, then
wait, just because she didn't have a higher percentage of the vote comparative to Biden doesn't mean that she was like not wanted. That's ridiculous.
it is what it means
Okay,
in a general
would you say
sense.
that about
People
Bernie?
selected Biden.
Was Bernie not wanted at all by the Democratic Party?
He was wanted a heck of a lot more than Kamala. Yeah.
Okay, Kamala, and you compare that based upon the percentage of vote they got. So Kamala Harris was more wanted than Donald Trump when he first ran, right?
In 2000,
Yeah, when she first ran in 2020, right? She was more wanted than Donald Trump when he first ran in 2000.
you're focused on the point that wasn't really the point. The point was she was implementing the same policies that Biden was going to implement, which I
And
don't think went
name
very
one of the
well.
policies that you disagree with. Name one Biden
I
policy
named
that's
all of
bad.
them right when we started.
Name one. Be specific.
Very leniency on open borders. Again,
No,
you
like
can
name the
say that
specific
you can.
policy that they passed that you disagree with.
Okay, I guess I'm just looking at the worldview as actually what happened, and what happened was is there was complete leniency of the border, and we all know that it's a
Okay,
fact. We
what
know the
policy did
millions
they
that
pass
crossed the
called the
border.
Open Border? What was the Open Border Act? When did they pass that?
You're going to know all this more than me because you do this 10 hours a day. I just lived life and saw the actual facts and the numbers that stated how many people went through the borders, which should bother you if child bothers you. Are we
Yeah,
going to
no,
talk about
it
that?
does. It does. And that's why Donald Trump literally calling the Epstein files a hoax should be concerning to you.
Yeah, but you're pivoting.
I'm not pivoting. You just said that in a
You are
pivot, and I
pivoting.
literally I said
I
that in
mean,
response to the pivot you brought up. That was your pivot, genius.
I know. Then you're pivoting to
I'm
files that we
pivoting.
don't have
I'm
proof of
pivoting. You
anything.
pivoted. I brought up the same topic you pivoted to. And now I'm the one pivoting under your view? Wow.
Yes, because this is obviously a much broader
So
thing that happens
dishonest.
to. Not really. It's actually very honest to say this is a bigger thing than some island where people's actual kids in America are getting shipped to other countries than they're getting. I think we should care about that more than.
I do care about that. And I
Okay.
don't think you care
Okay.
about
So
that
that's a
because you
big
voted
thing.
for yourself. You don't give about that. You voted for a guy held
Nope.
civilly liable 26 different people that have come out accusing him of misconduct, where he's literally acknowledged himself and admitted and boasted about
Which
literally exploiting women and girls, right?
you're
Walking into the
you're
changing
not gonna
rooms.
you're not you're not gonna get a debate that I think is the God's gift of character. I think what you will get a debate on is who did a better job from 2016 to 2020
Well,
and then
that wasn't
2020
even
to
the years that they were in
2024.
office, by the way. Secondly, if you want to reference this, yes, we
That
are going to
is, I'm
reference
talking
character
about
because
Trump.
character can be so bad insofar as that you shouldn't support him. But not only is Donald Trump worse on character, but he's worse on policy. You couldn't even mention a single policy you disagreed with in specific in terms of Democrats. All you could say was open border, buzzword, buzzword, buzzword. There's no idea of an open border that you could even define that would properly fit the way that Democrats address the immigration. Okay, you can't even give me a single definition of open border that it would actually apply.
I don't. I think I'm confused by what you're asking me. You're asking me what are the problems that, or what are the, I guess, the policies or problems that I would have with the Democratic view, and I'm giving them to you. I don't know what else you're looking for. You asked. It's your whole thing is why do you support Trump? And I'm giving you reasons why I would support Trump. Is that the premise of the conversation, or is it not?
Okay, yeah, but you're not really giving me reasons why you support Trump, and you're not really even responding to my
I've
arguments
given
this way.
you 4 or 5. I can give you like 20
No,
more if
again,
you would
what
like, but
can
I
you
don't
define
know.
open borders? What is that?
The leniency. It's not necessarily the term open is just a common term. The leniency to let people in. Are you going to debate that we let millions of
So it's
people go
based
through?
upon the level of border crossings, correct?
The amount of people,
The level of border crossings, correct?
the amount of people that get
Yeah.
by. Yes, that's obviously what I mean
Okay.
by leniency.
Okay, so did you know at the end of the first term for Trump, actually there was a higher level of daily crossings than the end of Biden's administration? So are you saying that Biden inherited an open border and then gave a more secure border over to Trump?
Do you think it became more secure solely towards the end because people knew Trump might get elected and they didn't want to lose their family?
No,
Do
because
you think
Biden
that's a
passed. No,
possibility?
because Biden passed an executive order, or which he thought was going to be temporary, because he wanted to have long-term legislation passed through Congress to get it through, so that it can't be overturned by the Supreme Court.
Okay, but what happened the previous 3 years and 6 months? How many people did we let in? And again, it's not
Because
that I
wait, so
have a.
economic
It's,
insecurity that existed under the pandemic because of the fact that people had a global inflation to deal with, right, led to more people coming to our country. That would have happened regardless of the administration because
that's
economic
not true.
insecurity was the
Stop, man.
cause.
Come
It is
on.
true.
Come on. Really? Because we're still dealing with an economic crisis as we speak, or most of the world is. And
They don't
guess
have
what?
global
People aren't
inflation like we
coming
did.
in.
That's just not true. We do not have global inflation like we did. That's not true.
Not to the extent, but we still do have it. Let's look at the rest of the world.
Wait, let me.
We're
What is
still
global
dealing with
inflation
the.
rate?
If you look at the rest of the world, we're not exactly killing it. Most countries are not having great GDP. Correct? Can you look that up?
I can pull that up in a second. But if you want to look at hold up. I need to see overall. Um, okay, you can keep making your point.
Yeah, I just again, I think that if I'm just being, you seem like a cool guy. I think it's a total cop out to say it has anything to do with COVID. I think if anything, you would be stricter because you don't know their vaccine policies and those things coming from different countries. So I would think you would secure the border even more. They secured
Now you guys care
restaurants. We
about
can't.
vaccine policies. Okay, one, you care about vaccine policies now. Two, yeah, we could totally have
Why do you
vaccine
think I don't care
policies
about
through the
vaccine
context of
policies?
because
Are you assuming I don't because I voted? Okay,
Republicans, yeah,
that's quite the assumption you're making there.
yeah, it is quite the assumption. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I have
Do
no
you want to
problem with
mandate
vaccines.
vaccines?
No, of course I
But
don't.
you want to mandate them for like undocumented immigrants and documented immigrants coming to our country?
No, who said that I
Oh,
did?
okay, okay. So then you don't want to mandate them. So then what's your point here about vaccine checks?
I didn't say vaccine checks. I said it's interesting that during a pandemic that we wouldn't have considered borders to even be. I mean, we couldn't get into restaurants without making sure everything was secure. So I don't. It seems like that would have
Which
been a
was
time that you have
bipartisan
made us.
policy, right?
Sorry, one more time.
Which was bipartisan, right?
What do you mean?
There were shutdowns in Republican and Democratic run states.
Uh, yes, I believe so. I mean, I only lived in two different states during the pandemic, but it
And
just
those
seems
shutdowns
obvious.
happened
If you
under
have a
Trump's
worldwide
administration,
pandemic
right?
that is new to everybody, it seems like the logical thing would be you wouldn't have open borders too. But for some reason, that was fine. I was thrown out of restaurants, or not me specifically, because I would wear a mask with people thrown out of restaurants for
Wait,
not
what
wearing a
years?
mask. But
Wait,
with
tell me,
people,
what years was the border open? Between what years?
I would assume, again, open's not the right word. We were just lenient. It's not that they were
Yeah,
open.
yes.
We didn't.
Okay, so
We
then
clearly
you
didn't
used the wrong
care.
word. At what years was it quote unquote lenient to a degree that you disagree with it?
I would assume 22 and part of 23, but I don't have it in front of me. I know that the numbers skyrocketed probably in the middle of his term.
So just 22 and 23, you were okay in 24?
Again, I think people were preparing, and if I'm just thinking logically, if I had a family, which I do, and I was crossing a border, and I thought there's a chance that this person might kick me out, then I would probably be cautious of wanting to cross the border. I think that seems logical. I don't think anybody is worried about Biden, and
There was
so that I
deportations that
think that
existed under
makes sense.
Biden. Like Trump supporters
One more
love to
time.
make that point. Trump supporters love to make the point that there were a lot of deportations that existed under Biden when referencing the amount of deportations that existed under Trump in comparison to Democrats. But they don't want to address the level of deportations that existed under Biden when talking about whether or not they think that there's a quote unquote lenient or open border. The idea that there was like no deportations under Biden is ridiculous. This same level of immigration would have happened if Trump were in office. Why? Because it was related to economic insecurity due to global inflation. 22 and 23, those were the highest levels of inflation. Okay? So you have to acknowledge that is related to global economic insecurity, and that's why Kamala Harris raised private funds in Central American countries to reduce the likelihood of people coming here because of economic insecurity. Because people realized that economic insecurity, many times caused by the United States, by the way, around the world, leads to people immigrating to the United States.
Did that happen in 2007, 2008?
It happened. Wait, it happened across the board. It's been happening. People immigrate to the United
Okay, I'm
States
just
to
curious.
flee
You just
economic
brought up the point.
insecurity
I'm just
caused by
curious
the United
if that
States.
would be
In the context
if
of
that would be
inflation,
consistent.
it wasn't caused by the United States, but we are acknowledging the reality that in typical that people will come to the context of the United States. Why? Because of economic insecurity, and that's a fact that we've known for a while.
Yeah, okay. What is that? I'm just out of curiosity. It says, why do you support Trump? That's the question. That's the
Yeah,
overall question, right?
yeah. So you want to hold criminals accountable? They should go to jail, right?
Depending on what they do, yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Isn't
Now
that
it's
how all
depending on what they
society
do.
should be structured?
So if someone hasn't committed a violent crime or a bad crime, should they be deported?
If somebody hasn't committed a violent crime or a bad crime, they should be deported if they haven't gone through the process. Do you not agree with that statement?
So if they violated the law should be enforced. Is that your view?
My view is what I just said. Do you not think they should be deported if they didn't go
Can I
through
have
the
an
proper
answer?
process? I just answered it. I think if they don't go through the proper process, if I go up to Canada and I don't have the rights to be there, I think guys should get
Okay, so
deported. I
so
think that should be
you
normal
want
practice.
you want immigrants to go through the legal process. So do you want Trump to go through the legal process to deport them? Because he's violating due process rights to a greater extent, which is
No, I
violating their
don't think
constitutionally
he should
protected
go through
rights.
the legal process to deport them because, again,
So okay, so by the way,
I, do you think that they
undocumented
should?
immigrants.
Do you
Listen,
think
listen,
that we
listen.
should?
Your view is
Go ahead.
crazy. Your view is undocumented
It's
immigrants
not, but
need to go through the legal process, and they're being punished because they didn't go through the legal process. But you don't think that Donald Trump should go through the legal process in deporting them? Isn't that hypocritical?
I don't think it's hypocritical at all. I don't know what's hypocritical about us saying, hey, you
You're going through
came
the
here
legal
illegally.
process. What do you mean you don't know what's hypocritical about saying they should go through the legal process and then yourself going through an illegal process of deporting them? That's dishonest. You said
It's
they
not
should go through the legal
dishonest.
process, but apparently you don't have to go through said legal process. You
Well,
believe in the
just out of
rule of law
curiosity,
for
and maybe,
wait, you believe in the law
yeah, go
for
ahead.
undocumented immigrants, but you do not believe in the law for Donald Trump. You believe he's above the law. You don't believe in the rule of law. You believe that he can engage in actions in which blatantly and explicitly violate people's constitutionally protected rights because you want to increase the speed of undocumented immigrants being deported from our country. Those that have not committed violent crimes or bad crimes, those that are helping out their communities, those that specifically didn't do anything to harm you as an American, who should be considered Americans themselves, right? And you're advocating for a violent process of deporting them without due process that makes this country a worse place economically speaking. It makes our culture worse, right? It makes our society worse. It makes us less humane for a process. It makes our country less safe because, again, ICE and deportation processes, right, and law enforcement in terms of the border are focused on deporting those that have not committed violent crimes or bad crimes, are not a threat to our safety and security as a community, to the degree of 70%. 70% of people detained by ICE have absolutely no prior criminal record. Okay? So they're spending over 70% of their time deporting people and detaining people who have not committed violent crimes and bad crimes, rather than focusing on those that have committed violent crimes and bad crimes, right? And the people that are actually a threat to the safety and security of everyday, average American citizens. You don't give a shit about safety and security. You don't give a shit about enforcing the law. You don't give a shit about any of those things. They're just baseless talking points used by the right to send out a propagandistic message so that they can spread their hate, particularly through the law.
Do you think that Trump's the only person that's deported people? Do you know any facts about Obama and how many people he
Yes,
deported?
I do.
Okay,
And I
please run them
disagree.
by me.
I will. So actually, under the
Go
context of
ahead, go
Obama,
ahead. I want to know how many people Obama, which nobody talks about, how many times that he
we do.
deported
We
people. And
constantly talk about this all the time. It's brought up. I'll tell you the distinction. Under
well,
Obama,
maybe, yeah,
there
go
was
ahead.
expedited removal didn't exist to the same degree as what it currently exists under Trump. Trump has extended expedited removal to be applicable to individuals that have been within the country for up to 2 years and that are in anywhere within the jurisdiction of the country. Whereas before, under Obama, expedited removal was specific to scenarios in which people have been within the country for less than 2 weeks and they're within 100 miles of the border. So that lack of due process has been extended to a greater portion of people under the Trump administration policy because of his expansion of expedited removal. I do disagree with the Obama administration and the Biden administration with the level of deportation that they engaged in and the lack of due process in some scenarios. I do disagree with that. I actually advocate anyone within the country should who's undocumented, who has not committed a violent crime or bad crime, should be given a pathway to citizenship where they do not have to leave the country while getting that pathway to citizenship. That's what I believe in. So I disagree with both Democratic and Republican administration policy in terms of immigration. But I agree with Democrats more than Republicans because they advocate for a quicker legal immigration process. They want a priority to deport those that have committed violent crimes or bad crimes, and they use a greater amount of due process. So respond to that, buddy.
No problem there. Again, you can say you would prefer one type of deportation over the other. My biggest thing is that I have kids, I've got a family, I've got people I care about. I don't think I'm not super worried about it, to be honest with you. If people are in a country, not our country, in a country, illegally, I think it's perfectly normal for that country to go, you haven't gone through the legal due process. You are not invited here. I don't understand the issue with that. I don't understand why you think that's a bigger concern, just out of
Wait, you're
curiosity.
saying
And
undocumented
again,
immigrants need to go
hold
through
on, let
due
me
process
finish.
in your view,
Let
but
me
apparently
finish.
Trump doesn't have to.
I let you finish. That's a bigger issue than the overall issue, which again, to me, would be child, to me, is a little worse than people going back to the country that they may have came from because of the fact that they didn't go through a legal process, which we would just both agree that we don't love either policy. But the policy to me would be, I'm most concerned with the U.S. citizens over non-U.S. citizens. Is that a normal thing to think?
what you think isn't normal because it's incredibly hypocritical. Why is it
It's
hypocritical?
not. There's
Because
nothing
you're saying,
hypocritical. I
let me
asked you a
explain. You said
simple question there.
you just complained about me cutting you off. Don't cut me off. If you care about
I just
child,
asked you a question, though, and you're not answering it. So that's the one
I
question.
am
Would you
answering the
rather the
question.
border policy? No. Would you rather the border policy be a little bit more lenient or whatever you would prefer? Maybe that's not the correct term. But, or would you rather kids continue being all throughout the southern part of the throughout Mexico and all throughout the whole world, which you know, if you've done any research on that, which would you prefer if you had a family? Would you rather go, hey, let me help out the people that aren't legal citizens here, or let me help my children not to get, what's your best option there?
I would like to reduce child, but the idea that you
Now, how
have
do
in
you
your
do that?
mind,
How do you
yeah, I'll tell you. I'll
reduce
tell you.
that?
Let me
Please
respond.
do.
Let me tell you.
It's
Yeah,
called
you do
stricter
that.
borders.
You do that by not voting for Donald Trump, who was held civilly liable, who was best friends with Epstein, a known
You're
child. Can I
switching
please
it
finish?
to
Can
the
I please
Epstein
finish?
files. No,
Let me fully
okay,
explain.
you're switching
You
the
are
Epstein
cutting me
files
off instead of letting me explain. You know that
You're
I'm
right,
beating
you're
you
right.
in
Go
this
ahead.
conversation.
Go
You know
ahead.
that you have no response. You have to cut me off because you know that what I'm saying is accurate.
You haven't beaten me in one topic
I
yet.
just
But go
did.
ahead.
I just did, and that's why you're scared and you keep cutting
Epstein
me off.
files. Okay. Go ahead. You're talking about Epstein files. That has nothing to do with my question. I asked you
It
a simple
does.
question. No, it doesn't.
Let me explain.
As,
Don't cut me
would
off.
you rather have closed borders and your kids not be taken from you, not you specifically, but in a broad scheme of things, or would you rather have a more lenient border, be nicer, and have your kids taken, which does happen? Maybe it hasn't happened to you. It has happened to many people. So who do you care more about? Do you care about the kids that are getting, or do you care about being nice to the people that aren't legal citizens here? That's your question. I don't care about any other files. That's not what we're talking about. What's your answer? Which would you prefer? Because that's the reality, right?
What you've just given me is a false dichotomy. This is not present within
Not at
reality.
all, but
These are
okay.
not the only two options. Okay? This isn't even an accurate representation of the Democratic perspective. So it's a straw man of the Democratic perspective, but it's also a false dichotomy because these aren't the only two things that we could particularly do to address the conditions of child at the context of the border. How should we address child border? Good question. How do we do this? Well, we should do this specifically by allowing law enforcement to focus on those that have committed those particular types of crimes rather than focusing on deporting people who have not committed violent crimes and bad crimes. When ICE is spending 70% of their time detaining people who have not committed violent crimes or bad crimes, that restricts their ability to be able to hold people accountable who have been children. So I think that law enforcement should be focused on deporting those that have done those particular types of actions, and particularly should be focused on holding those accountable that have committed those particular types of actions, rather than deporting people's family members and grandparents, right, and siblings that have not committed violent crimes or bad crimes, that are working in their communities, that literally just want to come here for a better life. That is how we address it. So this false dichotomy that you're creating in your head specifically of either it is, like I said, an undocumented immigrant is going to one specifically in the country, or we're going to have Donald Trump's policies where you're literally violating constitutionally protected rights across the board, is ridiculous. It's an absurd false dichotomy that you're created in your head specifically that has no relevance to actually the policies that are being supported by either side. You have to acknowledge this, right? What would I advocate for? I'd advocate against, right, someone like Donald Trump, someone being held civilly liable, right, being into a position of power, because that's going to create a culture where it's more likely to occur, where people care less about, where again, a convicted child like Jeffrey Epstein has said that Donald Trump is the worst person that he's ever known. He's known people that are bad, but none as bad as Donald Trump. And the convicted child knew a bunch of child. If Donald Trump is worse than all of them, then please explain to me why you support this guy while simultaneously saying that you want to address the level of child that's happening in our country after Donald Trump claimed that the Epstein files are a hoax, buddy.
I already answered it very clearly. You asked me the question. I said I want a more secure border. You answered it indirectly. You said I want to deport those people that are. What if those crimes were not? What if the people didn't commit those crimes yet, and they're just now here to commit those crimes? You know what I would rather do? Prevent it from ever happening. Doesn't that make more sense than to wait for them to have the crime committed?
So,
Again, I assume you don't. Just out of curiosity, Parker, do you have kids?
Yeah, I have 10 children. So I just want to let you know. Like if you,
Yeah,
if you
you
want to hold
probably
this
have
perspective,
zero.
let me explain.
Otherwise, you
Wait,
would
let me
just
explain.
agree and you would
Let me
stop
explain.
trying to
Let me
switch the
explain.
subject.
Let me explain. I'll explain right now. Let me explain to you why your perspective is
Please
not
do.
right here. Wait, when you say that you
It
want a
is.
more
It's
secure
a
border and you want to
fact that
prevent
less
crime,
people get
hey,
through the border, and you know that,
listen.
but
Let
that's
me
fine.
explain. Let me explain. So if
Go
you want a
ahead.
more secure border and you want to prevent crime, like please address it from this standpoint. One, the context of what I brought up would prevent crime to a significantly greater extent because law enforcement would be more focused on those that have committed violent crimes and bad crimes rather than those that have not committed violent crimes and bad crimes and are not a threat to our safety and security. Secondly, you wouldn't vote for a convicted criminal if you wanted to prevent crime. Thirdly, if you want to specifically look at the level of preventing crime, again, I don't think that you are preventing crime to a greater extent when you actively advocate for a guy who literally is violating the law, committing a crime to deport people without due process. Okay? That's another committing of a crime that apparently you don't give a flying out when you're specifically addressing about the secure border that you want to keep quote unquote secure, right? That's obviously absurd. So if you would like to address any of those points alongside the fact that undocumented immigrants are multiple times less likely to commit violent crime, property crime in the country comparative to natural born U.S. citizens. And if you wanted to reduce the nominal level of crime that happens, not just by rate, because undocumented immigrants and documented immigrants coming to the country do reduce the rate of crime as a percentage of the population, right? If you want to reference the nominal level of crime, well, then you want to reduce how many kids people are having because that's going to increase the nominal level of crime. You want to ban tourism. You want to ban legal immigration because all of those will lead to an increase in the nominal level of crime because there's more people within the context of our country. Even if it won't increase the rate of crime as a percentage of the population, it would increase the nominal level of crime. So ban tourism, no tourists, no legal immigrants, no having children, because that will lead to more crime in the future. And if you want to prevent it because you don't want there to be a higher population with more levels of nominal crime, well, then you have to be against all of those things.